What's up, droners, and welcome to another episode of Droner Dialogue. And this one is very interesting. This is actually what you asked for. I teased it, and you guys said you wanted it, so I'm gonna do it. We're gonna talk about the pilot relationships, professionalism, and what it takes to, the teamwork that really has to happen to be able to be a professional drone pilot. But on that note, I really wanted to do a big shout out to all of you guys for your feedback when I asked you for subjects that I could talk about. I really enjoyed going through those comments, and if you guys have any more ideas of things that can be talked about, that you wanna hear about from the droner, the drone channel, then bam, let me know. Put it in the comments, because as you can see from the last video that I did, I actually do listen and I actually do respond. So let me know. I'm gonna be listening because I'm definitely taking on a list of all the things that you guys want me to talk about, and I'm gonna talk about them. So let's just get right into this. So we're gonna talk about a few different things here today. The first one is being a drone professional on set and what that means. Also, the relationship between a gimbal operator and the drone pilot, and then the operation between the drone pilot and the visual observer, all of which are very important. And we're gonna start that off with being a professional on set. Now, I don't mean necessarily being nice and dressing nice or anything like that. Like, I rock my droner shirt, of course. But what I'm saying is that you need to understand that communication is key in all aspects of what we're gonna talk about today. And the first person that needs to be communicated with is actually going to be whoever the director of photography is, the client, whoever is the person who's in charge of what you're shooting. So let it be a real estate agent says, we want you to shoot this house. Then they're the person you need to talk to. So like I was saying, communication is key. And if you're not communicating with the person who knows what they want or the person who hired you, then obviously it's gonna be hard to do your job. So my first recommendation, and the first thing that I always do, is make sure that I have a very clear understanding of what it is they want. And typically what I do ahead of time working with the client is if they have any examples of anything that they want me to emulate. They say, oh, I really like the way these shots look or these shots feel or something like that. If they have any example videos they can send you, then it's really, really nice because you'll be able to say, oh, that's easy. I can definitely simulate that. For example, the other day I had a client that wanted me to simulate a helicopter crash with a drone. A lot of issues and variables in that, but one of the things that he said is that he talked to a professional helicopter pilot, and helicopters do like this when they're on their way down, and then they spin. So it was like, well, how do you simulate this? Well, with Inspire, you can simulate that with your yaw. So what I did was have the drone actually move, the yaw move with the drone while it was going down. And that was because that's what the client wanted, and that's what the client was telling me that they wanted to do. That was kind of an extreme example of what a client might want. But you also have clients that'll just say, honestly, I just want a static shot from this angle or this corner, or I just want a regular push shot over this field or something like that. You just gotta make sure that they're happy and you're working with them to make sure that they're getting what they want. So, just make sure you listen, make sure you relate it to your team. On to the meat of stuff. This is the part that I really like, is actually having the relationship with your gimbal operator and your pilot. With an Inspire 2 or any dual operator drone, this is the entire advantage of having a dual operator drone. It makes it so you can be more than just a drone pilot. You have the ability to be able to keep everything safe. You have the ability to be able to frame the shots in every second without having to stare at the drone the whole time. It's just really powerful. And the way that my team works is that the person who's flying the drone pilot, their job is to keep the eyes on the drone. Their eyes are on the drone, they're flying the drone. And then the person who's on the gimbal is pretty much the director of the person who's the pilot, and they're the one relaying the information of what might need to change throughout the shot. The pilot is in charge of flight safety, and the gimbal operator is in charge of the shot itself. Now, before we ever take off, we always determine exactly what the plan is for the flight time, because all drones have limited flight time. And if you're gonna go up in the air, first of all, you're taking a risk. So you need to make sure that when you're in the air the entire time, you're doing things that are relevant to why you're there. And wasting time trying to figure out what the next shot's gonna be while the drone just hovers is not worth it. That's just killing your batteries, and it's making it so you won't get as much content for the client, which means that the client may not be as happy or have as many opportunities to use the footage you got them to be able to achieve the look or goal or story or whatever it is they're doing for their project. Your pilot, your drone pilot and gimbal operator are gonna have a conversation and talk through each shot. So if there's a building in the middle of this space and you're shooting the building, you'll say, okay, cool. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do coming in from building left, because we're standing in this on one side of the building. We're coming in from building left, and we're going to do an up and over shot where we wanna see the roof. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up and over, you're gonna go up and over this corner, and then I want you to do, as a gimbal operator, you're gonna pan down back to the building, and we're gonna be able to see the roof, but we're also gonna get the sun flare in the corner because we wanna make sure we get that as well. Not the hardest shot in the world to do, but without actually talking about it and just getting in the air, you can waste a lot of time, waste a lot of battery, and might not be able to get it. So you talk about it and then you do it. And when you do it, when I talk with my pilots or my gimbal operators, it's normally you have different varying levels of what you tell each other and how you're going to fly. For example, when I'm flying, what I do is I relay to my gimbal operator the speed that I'm going to fly at. They'll say, hey, I want you to fly this at medium speed. It's like, okay. As soon as I start making the move, it's like, all right, make the move in 3, 2, 1, medium speed. And then you make the move at the medium speed, which is half stick forward. Or even take it to the more specifics. You have the telemetry data that's in front of you while you're flying that tells you how fast you're flying, tells you how high you're flying, and tells you how far you are away. And you can speak in actually metrics of distance or time or speed and say, hey, I want you to hold this shot for 10 seconds, but I want you to do it at 20 miles an hour and just go in a straight line. Things like that, and being able to relate those things are huge. And that's exactly how the communication has to work. Is you'll say, before we get off the ground, you got to say, I want to do these kind of shots for this long, and I think this is the distance you're gonna have to do, and this is the height you should do, and specifically speak about every single thing that's going to happen on this shot. And that works really, really well when you're communicating with your gimbal operator. And when you're in the air, the gimbal operator is king. The reason the gimbal operator is king is the entire reason you're in the air is for the shot and the image. And like I told you before, the person flying is the person who's looking at the drone. They're not paying attention to the shot at all. All the trust in the world has to go to the gimbal operator because they're the only one watching the monitor. Unless you have a DP who has a separate monitor, who's the client or whatever, which we also do. But for the most part, you have to understand that the gimbal operator is the person who's in charge. And that gimbal operator has to be able to relay what they want to happen. So as the flight starts or commences after the 3, 2, 1 medium, then typically the gimbal pilot will say, okay, a little slower, a little faster, perfect, keep it going, keep that steady. All right, now rise, good. Now move forward, that's perfect. All right, stay like that, maintain 5, 4, 3, stop on 2, 1, and then stop, bam. And just be able to relay exactly what it is you need the pilot to do, because the pilot is just gonna keep the drone safe, it's gonna keep it wherever you tell it to go, and it's gonna help you achieve those moves while you're flying the camera and paying attention to framing. That relationship is super important. And the reason why it's so important is because, like I said before, trust. If the pilot doesn't trust the gimbal operator, or the gimbal operator doesn't trust the pilot and what they're doing, then it's not gonna be you're never gonna be able to have the shots that matter. The gimbal operator might not trust the pilot to keep the drone safe, so they're gonna constantly be looking away from their framing to be making sure the drone's okay. Or the pilot's not gonna be able to trust the gimbal operator to be able to get the framing and the shot that they're supposed to, just because they can't see the shot. And they'll be looking away from the drone and looking at the camera to make sure that it's good, which obviously takes away from the ability to fly and keep things safe. So that level of trust and understanding with one another is huge, it's vital, and a lot of people underestimate how difficult it really is to actually fly the gimbal on a camera. So having those two people that are really good and work really well together is a huge must for any drone team. The second relationship that's really important is between the visual observer and the pilot itself. Now, this is really what happens when you have a single flyer, like a Phantom 4 Pro, where you can't have a second person who's operating the gimbal. So one person's flying the drone, operating the gimbal, and responsible for framing. So this is where a visual observer is key, because you're gonna be looking down at your screen and the framing of what's going on while you're actually flying the drone at the same time. So you're gonna need somebody who's a strong visual observer to tell you if you're gonna be in any trouble. And you do the same kind of relationship things that we just did before. You're gonna have the same kind of conversations you'd have with the gimbal operator, where you say, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be going this way, I'm gonna be doing this, I'm gonna be doing that. Make sure you keep it safe, watch out for that tree, there's power lines over there, and just making sure you're having those kind of conversations. One of the things that I like to do is when we have a visual observer and there's an obstacle that we're a little shy about, or a little bit, I don't know if I can see it. It's hard to tell depth when you're flying from a drone. If there's like a pole in front of you that's like 300 yards away, it's hard to tell when the drone gets close to that pole or when it doesn't. So what I like to do is actually have my visual observer get close to the obstacle that most worries me, and them stand next to that. And we also use the EarTech headsets to be able to communicate. And I use that for every drone flight ever. Those things are incredible. And it makes it so you never have to turn and look, you never have to yell. Everything you're saying is instantly in your ear. It's just an open walkie-talkie that just makes it so that you never have to miss any form of communication, and it's effortless to be able to tell each other what you need to know. So I send the visual observer over to the object, and that visual observer will watch it from an angle that allows me to feel safe and allows me to keep it safe and saying, okay, cool, you're close, all right, don't get any closer kind of thing. But the visual observer is super important in keeping you safe, making sure that you're staying away from other aircraft, other drones, other manned aircraft, and having that relationship of them knowing what's gonna happen and also having somebody there to be able to have your back while you're flying is huge. And again, it falls down to trust. Visual observer trust is real, just like, the gimbal and the pilot trust is real, because again, you're gonna be looking down at your screen while you're flying. And if you're looking down at your screen, that means you're not looking at your drone, which is your investment, and that means that you can crash it, obviously. So Visual Observer is there to help you. I know with the Phantom 4 Pro, you might not crash it as easy because of the sensors, but you can crash anything that goes up and come down. So All I'm saying is that it's definitely worth having a visual observer. I personally never fly unless I have at least a visual observer with me. And if I'm flying the Aspire 1 or 2 or any of the multi-operator drones, then typically I like to have the pilot, the gimbal, and a separate visual observer to make sure we keep everything safe, make sure that we have good communication throughout the team, everybody has on their headsets, and we're all winning. All right, so the big walkaway that you're gonna take from this video, that you should take from this video, there's two really important things that you always have to emphasize as a professional drone team. Number one is communication, and communication between the team and communication with the client. I already went through all of that, so just make sure that communication is on point, and whatever system you have to create for that, do it, and just make sure you're practiced and ready to communicate with each other and with the client. Number two is trust. Trust comes from experience, and trust comes from knowing the people that you're flying with. So in trusting them, that means that you spent the time, you know what they're capable of, you know how to communicate with them, you know how they work, you know how you work, and you have the trust to be able to say that I trust you're gonna do your job so I can do my job and you trust me to do mine. Super important, and this pretty much is the foundation of any professional drone team to be able to get the best work out of each other. Droners, thank you for checking out another Droner Dialogue. And like I said before, if you have any other ideas of Droner Dialogue that you want to see, let me know. And as always, we have videos over here. And this one is the other Droner Dialogue because we got a lot of them. You guys seem to really be enjoying them. Or you can check out the greatest opening video to a drone thing ever. So that's where that is. And you can go ahead and support us because that's what allows us to do this. You can do that by hitting up our Patreon page or subscribing or sharing our videos. Actually, you should do all three. I would really appreciate that. And make sure that you stay fly.